All right. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning to all of my school counselors, school social workers, mental health providers. I know we have a fair amount of students in this group as well. Hello, hello to all of you. I am Kavalin Day, and I wanted to pop in here. I said I was going to pop in this week because we had a very kind of popular and engaging post this week. And I wanted to make sure that we talked about it a little bit. So I'm just going to make sure that everything is working as it is designed. All right, good. All right. So the post, if you haven't seen the post that I'm talking about is pinned in our group. And this post is one that I did not create this post. It actually, the attributes of who posted is just at the bottom of the image. So I did not post this, but it was all about how to create a more trauma sensitive classroom. And I love when I saw it, I was like, oh, this is a good post. I definitely got to put it in the group. So I snagged it and put it in the group. But I think it's really important because as we shift into this, a more trauma-informed, more culturally competent, a more mentally healthy, well-being, supportive environment. As we really shift into that, it's important that we recognize that some of the things that we used to think were best practices are not actually best practices. Some of the things that we normalized, that we expected, that maybe even our kids did, actually don't have a scientific background for them being beneficial, and some of them actually are the opposite. There's a lot of evidence that they are harmful. So it's important that we really have these conversations so that we are clear about what we need to do. And so that's why I really wanted to make sure that we talked about this today. So in the post, there are 7 things mentioned. So clip charts, whole body listening, food rewards, earning sensory breaks, planned ignoring, family tree or family like parenting activities, and then a token economy. So first of all, I want to thank everyone who commented on the post and was asking like, well, what are these things? I love that this is a space where we can have conversations about what is something that you maybe have never heard of before, because we take for granted, especially in education and even sometimes in mental health, that everybody understands the same things. So when we're talking about a clip chart, and a clip chart is it probably was 10 or 15 years ago, was very, very popular, all the rage, where there's essentially a chart at the front of the classroom or at some part of the classroom that has various colors, and every student's name starts on the color green. And that means that they're green, that they're ready to show up for classroom. And they would move kind of down the clip chart or up the clip chart, depending on how you would kind of determine it based upon their behaviors. And the idea was that this was supposed to be able to give children an immediate like visual representation of their behavior. And so if they were doing something wrong, you would say, move your clip down, right? If they're doing something good, you say, move your clip up. So it was to be giving them some feedback. But we know that that's not a very trauma sensitive approach, because what's good for one student is not necessarily good for the other. And anything that has the potential to create shame, guilt, embarrassment for a child would not be considered trauma sensitive. Whole body listening is when you're expected to have eyes, ears, and body all facing the speaker. And for some of our kids, we know that they need to stand up, they need to move around, they need to be sitting on an exercise bike. So that's also not a trauma sensitive approach. Anytime we talk about food rewards, where you are getting a perk, like a physical perk for something that you are doing, or only being rewarded with food if you're doing something right, that has consequences for kids, especially when they have like food instability or where they maybe have had neglect. Earning sensory breaks. So if you know that a kid is just, they've been still too long and they need to get up and move, they shouldn't have to earn a sensory break. They should be able to get what they need for their body without having to justify it. When we talk about active ignoring, this is one that is, I would kind of put a little asterisk by it, because when we're talking about active ignoring, the perk here is that we don't need to focus on every single behavior in order to help children gain skills. And I think if you are constantly trying to correct every single thing you see, you do have the potential to create a negative climate for a child. I think in this context, what they're saying is, If the behavior is indicative of a need, you want to make sure that you're at least giving them an opportunity to address the need. So I think it's really more about how you address that one. And then anytime we're talking about a family tree activity, Mother's Day cards, Dad's card, dads with donuts, all these different things, it makes children who don't have that scenario feel left out. And it could trigger them to have negative emotions or negative memories about, whatever is missing in their lives. And then lastly, that token economy is always expected, is that the idea that you have to earn the things that you need. Now, here's the key. The key here is that a lot of these things have been a part of our educational system for a long time. A lot of teachers and a lot of us, even as counselors, were really kind of trained to use some of these techniques. And so they're not necessarily terrible. But if you're really moving towards being a completely equitable space and doing the best that you can, they may not be the best case scenario. And so the idea here is that you want to use a trauma lens. And so anything that you're doing, you want to kind of consider, like, if I was a child who didn't have food for the weekend, how would I feel in this situation? If I was a child whose parent was in prison and I'm in the foster care system with people who don't even really like me, right? How would this situation make me feel? It's about looking through the eyes of the other children in your classroom. And this is really challenging because you might have 20 or 30 kids or more in a classroom setting. If you have a caseload of 40 or 50 as a social worker, or maybe even you have a caseload of 450 if you're a counselor or district level social worker, you have this huge caseload and you're saying, how can I accommodate for all these different needs? You're not going to necessarily get it right all the time. The idea is that you're moving in the right direction. Okay. And so one of the things that came up is, so how can we learn more about this? So there's a lot of people who are in the trauma-informed space. I've been talking about trauma-informed care for years. I have resources in my storefront on trauma-informed care. I've been called in to speak at conferences on trauma-informed care. So there's a lot of people in there, but there are some big name experts that I would recommend. Heather Forbes, and I'll put some of these in the comments around this video, or you can send me a message if you are looking for something specific. Feel free to shoot me a message. So Heather Forbes has the Beyond Consequences Institute. She wrote the book, I think it's called Help for Billy, and she has a few other books that she's written as well. She's actually quoted my books in her books. And she's called me in to speak at her conferences. She has a national conference at least once or twice each year. I think they're back in person now as well. So she is one that is definitely a big name in that space in terms of the trauma-informed movement within schools. Now, Dr. Bruce Perry is one, and I've always, I definitely have recommended his book with Oprah. If you're very, very new to being, to understanding trauma, or you're looking for a book group to do or a book study to do with a group of teachers or a group of counselors in your district or something like that, What Happened to You is a really great book to start with. It's just got enough science in there that it gives you that background, but it's got lots and lots of stories. So it's a very easy listen if you listen to it on audiobook, and an easy read as well. So there's a lot of books, and feel free underneath in the comments of this books, if there's books that you have personally loved or that have been transformative for you, drop those as well. There's also some different organizations that will come in and provide training for you. The key here is, I think this is about practices, right? So it's about using a trauma-informed lens, finding out which practices are going to be best for you, and constantly using the feedback you're getting from your environment to determine what is the best case scenario. Okay, I'm going to check and see if we have any questions or comments. I don't see anything just yet. If you have additional questions, feel free to drop them under this video and I will be happy to come back and respond. I think it's a really great idea to always make sure that we're constantly looking at being more trauma-informed, more culturally competent. The same thing can be said for having a culturally competent school. If you put on the lens of, if I was a Black student if you have a predominantly, Caucasian classroom, if I was a Black student, how would I feel in this situation? If I was a student of Asian descent, how would I feel in this situation? If I was a student who is from, Native American descent, how would I feel in this situation? That helps you to continue to make an equitable space by just putting those lenses on and looking through the eyes of another student. Now, it's not going to be all of it, right? So that's a good start. But the other piece of this puzzle is checking your environment for feedback. So creating a space where kids can say, this makes me uncomfortable. I don't like the way this makes me feel, or I didn't like the way that that was said, or I didn't like the way that they wrote that, or I don't think that's a great idea. I came across another organization called it's a See Her, I think it's seeher.org. And they really talk about this is a media company, so they really are more focused on businesses, but they really talk about how important it is to have a lens of, even just like from the female perspective, making sure that if I'm a male in this situation, how would I feel? If I'm a female in this situation, how would I feel? And I know this can feel like a lot, but if you're talking about creating an equitable space, this is one of the ways that you do that, by really being clear that people all come into your classrooms from different environments, from different perspectives, and anything that you can do to help support them feeling more comfortable in your space, they're going to be more open to the work that you're asking them to do, be it academic, emotional, social, what have you. So that's our live for this week. We're just going to talk about that. Feel free, if you have any additional questions, to drop them underneath this video. Always want to make sure that you are feeling the love and that you can ask questions. So please, whenever you see a post, if something's like, I don't know what that means, or that doesn't make sense, please drop a comment, because I will definitely make sure that we respond, because this is the space where we learn and grow each day, because what you do matters, and I'm happy to support that. You guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you soon.